Good morning, everybody. I'm going to call the Finance Committee meeting of September the 9th to order. Madam Clerk, can we do a roll call, please? You'll note you have new technology in front of you, so govern yourself accordingly. You have to enter a meeting first. You're in. Good. Any declarations of interest? Being none, adoption of the minutes, June 10th, closed financial of June 10th as well. Mover, Councillor McDougall, second by Councillor Gerard. Any corrections, debate? Being none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That item is carried. There's no statutory public meetings. We have 2 staff presentations and 1 delegation. We may have an opportunity to go in camera if required, and we'll do that at the conclusion of the meeting. If there's if there need to go into camera on the anti-racism task force, we can do that at the same time if there's questions in regards to the resumes, although the recommendation is done in public. So with that, first presentation is Mary Simpson, who is Director of Risk Management, Economic Studies and Procurement, and it's an update on the development charges. So, Mary, welcome back to our chambers.
Thank you. Good morning. I am here this morning, not just as the director within the finance department, but also on behalf of the Regional Development Charge Staff Working Group, which consists of staff from our works, community growth, legal, and finance departments, along with economic development. And I have with me today 3 of our economists who do work on development charges, Gary Aslan, Cam Hoy, and Matt Campo, along with Colleen is in the back row there from our community growth. So this morning is really about providing a refresher on development charges. I have a few introductory comments that I would like to share with you, as well as an overview of the recent changes that we've seen in the development charge regime and to our own program here at the region. We'll also touch on the Bill 17, for which a number of regulations are expected to be introduced this fall, and move on to next steps. And I also would mention that Council had submitted comments to the province. Those comments were endorsed in Report 2025 Cal 26 in June. So the comments and concerns of Council have been conveyed to the province on Bill 17, hence why today is more of a refresher. We'll first start with a bit of Development Charges 101. This graphic, I think, neatly demonstrates the fact that development charges are actually a calculated charge. They reflect the eligible capital cost that is related to growth, and we divide those costs by the expected development forecast. We follow a prescribed methodology that is set out in the Development Charge Act. We remove the costs that are related to existing development and future, and focus in on those that are eligible for the period in question. This slide is a new slide for your committee. It is demonstrating what we believe is really the issue at hand, and that is that average household incomes have not kept pace with the rapid rise in home prices. In Durham Region, the average home price far exceeds what the average household can afford. So what this slide is showing you is on the vertical axes are the price of homes, and the average price at the time of creation for this graph in Durham was $913,000. So that's the dotted horizontal line. Moving along the horizontal axis are the different levels of household income. Currently, the average household income in Durham is $130,000. Using a set of assumptions, which are, in my opinion, very reasonable, The line that moves upwards to the right is showing the amount of house that each of those income levels can afford. So given that the average household income in Durham is $130,000, that would suggest that the house that family could reasonably afford is in the neighborhood of $400,000. That leaves us with that red arrow showing the significant gap in the amount of house price that our average household cannot afford. So as part of that challenge, development charges have faced a lot of scrutiny. And the region of Durham, in fact, so what this slide is showing you rather, is that the region of Durham's DCs make up a relatively small portion of those new home prices. They are just one piece of this broader affordability puzzle that we're working on. The graph that is displayed here shows the various built forms, single, townhouses, and apartments. And in all cases, the region of Durham's development charges account for between 4.5% and 6% of that house price. Moreover, and I harken back to the first slide I showed you, those development charges are actually recovering the capital cost of water, sewer, roads, and transit that's required to support those new homes as they come in. So turning now to look at the tremendous amount of change that we've seen in the Development Charge Act. This is a graphic that we've recently put together. It gives you a bit of a timeline for the amount of change that we've seen just in the last 5 years. Starting with Bill 108, which was introduced in January of 2020, we saw the freezing of development charge rates at different points in the development process, along with the introduction of installment payment requirements for various types of housing, such as rental, nonprofit, homes for the aged, and hospices. The next change happened in the fall of that same year, September 2020, with the introduction of Bill 197, which did add new service areas for municipalities to collect development charges and removed a statutory deduction that had been required. However, it broadened significantly the exemptions for secondary suites. And secondary suites have become an increasingly important part of this puzzle. Secondary suites are basement apartments, they're converted garages, they're granny flats in your backyard. And as housing has become more and more expensive, that type of accommodation has significantly increased within the region. So the fact that all of these types of units are exempt does have a direct bearing on our revenue that we are able to collect to recover those capital costs. Moving then to November of 22, Bill 23 was introduced. And Bill 23 introduced the phase-in of development charges. It removed the housing services, and it provided additional discounts for rental apartments. In December of 23, the region of Durham actually did introduce its development charge bylaw in the summer of 23, so we were caught in those phase-in requirements. Moving to December of 2023 was Bill 134, which introduced the new affordable housing exemption. Then in April of 24, we had Bill 195 that shortened the freeze to 18 months and removed the phase-in, but left the exemptions, the discounts, and the freezing. And then we are to where we are today, which is the introduction of Bill 17 in this spring. And that introduced a long-term care exemption, as well as proposed a number of significant changes in methodology to how we calculate development charges. So that's an overview of the provincial actions. In 2025, the region of Durham has taken unprecedented voluntary modifications that have been targeted and time-limited to help address the affordability issue around housing. As recently as in June, there was the approval by Council of the deferral of indexing for our development charges. That report is, there's a report on your agenda this morning to extend that deferral until next July, which would be the next regular time of indexing. That was on in addition to Council's approval of a targeted residential, medium, and high density deferral program, which focused on medium and high density housing, as well as a deferral program that has been approved by Council for industrial development charges. And in addition, throughout 2025, Regional Council has been approving site-specific development charge funding and credit agreements with developers. These are agreements where the region is entering into a arrangement with a developer or a series of developers, consortium of developers rather, to unlock development with a win-win perspective for a investment by the region, sometimes front-ended by the development group in exchange for development charge credits. So it's not a gift. There would be credits that have to be provided subsequently. We have been able to move forward with unlocking certain site-specific developments in order to assist with housing. So the latest on Bill 17. Bill 17, which is the Protect Ontario by Building Faster and Smarter Act, was tabled in May. Regional Council has provided comments through the registry that were approved in June. Regional staff have activated the new exemptions for long-term care, including those that were impacted on the installment payments that we did have agreements for. And the province has been consulting with municipalities and other stakeholders on a series of potential amendments. The one that we have heard, I think, a fair bit about is a deferral of payment to occupancy for residential units. They're also looking at the benefit to existing methodology, and that is where we remove the capital costs that are, as it sounds, of benefit to the existing development. Local service definitions, land cost, historic level of service. Now, land costs have been a concern by the development industry because of the rapid increase that we've seen in land costs, and making sure that background studies that are done by municipalities don't overestimate how much that increase is going to be. So there's been a fair bit of attention focused on land costs, as well as some issues around interest and merging service categories for development charge credits. Now, I can tell you that I have been involved in a number of these working groups. The discussion is very positive. We are working through a number of technical information. As you would imagine, a background study takes about a year to prepare, so there's a lot of background, technical engineering, land use planning, a lot of really good information that's being brought to those tables, and a very open and positive conversation. But at this point, we don't know what the province is going to move forward with. So what we wanted to do this morning was to make sure that the Finance and Administration Committee was aware of the potential, and I emphasize that word, potential, implications if some of these changes were to come to be. We have been, over the summer, proactively exploring these financial implications, including the deferral of collection of residential DCs to occupancy. Now, you will recall that I just reminded you that Council had approved a deferral to occupancy for some of our existing development. So the analysis that I'm going to show you is assuming that all residential development would move to occupancy. And the preliminary modeling that we have suggests that it would have a significant detrimental impact on our region's cash flow. And the reason that is that the time lag between when we collect today, which is either at building permit or time of plan of subdivision, is 2 to 4 years from the date of the first occupancy. So a deferral to occupancy would mean an immediate ceasing of development charge revenue for a period of upwards of 2 to 4 years. Now, I also want to share that we were already in a growth expansion capital forecast. The region of Durham is growing. We have very, very significant growth related capital needs on the horizon. And the region of Durham had already been looking at 1.3 billion in new debenture funding in order to invest in these large-scale plant investments that we need to make, along with arterial roads and transit. In addition to exploring the scenario of deferral of payment, we also have looked at potential scenarios around a reduction in the rate. Many of those changes in the methodology that I spoke to that might come out of Bill 17 could have the impact of lowering our development charge rate, along with the potential of a mandatory reduction in the rate. And that would obviously have the impact of then also greatly reducing the development charge revenue that's available for the capital program. So before I show you the next slide, I want to preface this with this is preliminary. These are estimates, and this is a scenario that we have created. So this slide is showing you what a year or 2 years ago we were looking at as a growth forecast using development charges. What you're looking at is the year-end cash position of the development charge reserve funds. And that assumed that we would build the capital program that's in the 10-year forecast. It also assumes that you would have had a more normal growth program forecast, which we have been calling for. If we went to a scenario of collecting all of the residential development charges at time of first occupancy, the reserve funds would very quickly be depleted if we were to continue, and council approved, moving forward with that 10-year capital program. In fact, in addition to this position being the year-end cash position, we estimate that we may have to increase our debt requirements by approximately, and this is a round estimated number, 300 million, which would also bring additional debt charges and interest charges over this forecast period. So this is, to make matters worse in this scenario, over and above the shortfalls in development charge revenue that have come to the region because of those changes to the development charges. So that freezing, the exemptions, the installment plans. We're also estimating, and Nancy has shared this in the budget presentations, that over this 10-year period, we would have lost approximately upwards of 900 million in development charge revenue that we would have recovered if those changes had not come into the regime. So, to put this a different way, our annual DC revenue is about $250 million. And if that doesn't arrive because of the deferral to occupancy, it will have a significant impact on council's decisions moving forward with the capital program. So we felt this morning that it was important to share this scenario with you so that you understand the importance of development charges to your capital program and enabling the growth-related capital to be developed. We have large-scale water. For instance, the Whitby water supply expansion is upwards of $500 million. These are large infrastructure investments that are required to enable the housing forecast going forward. So again, just a bit of a recap. Development charges recover the growth-related capital costs that the region of Durham has invested in order to provide water, sewer, roads, transit, and other infrastructure for the new development coming to the region. To ensure sustainability, the development charge program seeks to align the revenue that is coming in with the capital spending, including debt servicing where it is appropriate for large-scale infrastructure. It's also critical that we recognize that the region of Durham is in a phase of significant infrastructure investment. The region of Durham is growing very rapidly. And so unlike some other regions who may be at a state of maturity, the region of Durham is rapidly expanding and it needs to continue to fund its capital program. So the concern that we're raising is that some of the changes to the development charges that may be coming could have an impact on our cash flow and actually force council to have to slow capital investment, which would be against the not just provincial, but the mutual goal of continuing to provide more housing. So in terms of next steps, as I have mentioned, Council did endorse the comments, and there were certainly more comments than just development charges on Bill 17, and those have been submitted. We are now all waiting and watching for the release of the regulation. In the meantime, Council has been very proactive in moving forward with some extraordinary measures in terms of assisting with development charges. Regional staff at the staff level are actively engaged in the various forums and groups, as well as monitoring the development charge programs and contributing to the discussion. We continue to work with the development community on these site-specific agreements, along with timing of future development charge bylaws. You may recall that the region of Durham recently settled a large-scale development charge appeal earlier this year, and one of the commitments that we did make to build and to our local home builders was that we would begin work on the new bylaw. And at this point, we're waiting for the new regulations to be released so that we can move forward with that work. We are, I would say in my closing comments, moving forward to suggest that any relief that is provided should be time limited and ensure that it is of benefit to the homeowners. And we're also recommending that there be some provisions for transition if there are to be large-scale changes. And with that, I would conclude and welcome any questions.
Thank you, Mary. Committee should be aware there is a report about the staff decision to recommend to not index our development charges for this year, which is, I'm told, unprecedented. So we are doing our bit. I'm sure the minister will be happy to do that, but there is financial impact because of it. Questions of the delegate? Councillor Leahy.
Thank you, Chair Ash. So I appreciate that through you to staff. So I appreciate the presentation and the update. My first question is around approaches to the capital. If we're going to have a $900 million deficit on our $6.3 billion plan, what are we doing to adjust that or looking at deferring projects and other things to try and close that gap?
Well, let me begin by saying that that's why we're considering this as a scenario. It is our hope that the types of measures that Council has taken will be paralleled by whatever is coming from Bill 17, and that we will not have to deal with that cash crunch. I think that I know we have a very robust capital program in terms of its planning, and you're absolutely right. Those decisions would come forward to Council. We would assess the revenue that we're expecting to get. We're very fortunate to be in a strong financial position, and we would make recommendations through Nancy through the capital budget process of the ongoing capital program. But I can, just to add to that reassurance, tell you that conversations that we've had, and I look to Colleen too on this, with our local developers, are that they very much understand that the region of Durham does need funds to continue the capital program. And without that capital program, they won't be able to develop. So it is a bit of a chicken and egg in terms of making sure that the right investments continue to be made in the regional infrastructure so that we are ready to service those new homes.
So supplementary to that, so, and I appreciate that, like, have any of them given any indication that they would 100% defer all of their fees, or are some open to paying them just like they do today to try and make sure that their investments in an infrastructure occur on time?
That, I think, is why we are spending so much, yes, because I think that that's why we've spent so much time over the summer talking about that methodology. Developers, in some cases, do have legitimate concerns. And I think that it's always healthy to have those conversations around how we attribute. I'll give you an example. We haven't had this much growth in the region of Durham. And so when we were calculating our roads forecast, one of the things we did was when we had to put in a grade separation, like to go over railroad tracks, we were attributing that to largely growth. There is a legitimate benefit to existing that comes with a project like that. And so we're having those kind of thoughtful, technical conversations to look at what costs go into that development charge calculation to make sure that we are being as efficient in our infrastructure and that we're appropriately sharing those costs. And what we're hearing is developers understand that those charges are to repay. There's no profit margin. There's no kind of surplus that's taken off for a pet project. Those costs are very much being funded from their development charges. And we certainly have a very robust public process around development charges, and in fact, through the annual treasurer's statements on the use of those funds.
And I appreciate that, and through the chair to you, my experience is that we get challenged on benefits existing consistently every year, always, constantly, all the time. So aren't they always pushing back on that? Like, that just seems to be a perennial, oh my gosh, it's too much benefit existing, which means just raising taxes.
It's a natural tension, I would say. I think you are always going to get those questions, and at this point, I do believe it's a healthy part of the discussion. And I think that we are very transparent, and the conversations that we've been having over the summer, certainly through regional treasurers, are looking at the methodology that we use across the province and hoping that we can standardize some of those approaches so that you don't get those questions and we don't get those questions, that there's some guidance on what is the appropriate methodology to use in those situations. And maybe some of that tension will ease when there's more mutual understanding. But I think that that's, it's not unlike us going forward with your property tax. We're always going to have questions, and that's healthy to have to explain how we've done our calculations.
And again, further on, I have a number of questions just around what you were just saying. Looking at something like grade separation, another option is the way to reducing costs is to not have the grade separation. Like, are we not looking and considering those different things as a way of closing that gap if we don't have enough revenue to do it?
Sorry, I used economist short speak. That's what we talked about efficiency too, right? And in terms of making sure that the development is using the existing capacities of the existing systems so that we don't have to do those expansions, making sure those expansions are targeted. Yes, that is definitely all part of the conversation.
Okay, no, and I appreciate that. That's encouraging. Next question is around, and again, I can only speak to the knowledge and information I have around Whitby, but we have, about 18,000 units we've approved. We've had a few hundred permits pulled this year. So does that not factor into your infrastructure and capital requirements? Like, we're not going to need as much water as soon. We're not going to need as much of those roads as soon if no one's even building. And we're not seeing built in the condos where we have approvals all over the place. They're not being built. Now, there are some electrical restrictions up in Brooklyn, but across the board, we are not seeing them. Does that not tie into your forecast so that we can delay all those pieces and essentially align that delay with the delay we're going to get in the cash flow?
It does factor, sorry.
I was just going to say, if I may here.
Sure.
One of our challenges, and we'll have to address this through the budget process, so we will be layering on to the economic work that Mary's done, and it translates then into the work that Nicole will do from the budget perspective. So we are caught in that tension where the province has a great interest in reducing development charges in whatever format they choose to do. They're also very, very concerned that we're going to stop our capital programs. Well, we can't, as you're pointing out, we can't keep spending and not collecting money. We end up with this sort of challenge in between. So if there is significant infrastructure funding that flows with changes to DC, then that would allow us to not be so concerned over a capital program. But in the absence of some real funds flowing through, then this council might have to make some of those tough decisions when we get to budget, because typically we take the cash inflows from the year before and we say, well, that's how much you can spend this year. What's in reserve funds is set aside for those major programs, which are also all triggering. So we are going to get to that nexus where we're going to have to say, this is what we have. Because water and sewer is on a regional side having to be in place up front, that creates an even additional problem. And not to minimize the challenge at the local level, there are some capital decisions at the local level you can make about providing a service after the fact. Water and sewer, the tap has to come on in every new home regardless. So, there is that tension, and that is going to really create some difficulties depending on what the province announces with respect to Bill 17, because we're going to have to chart out then a cash flow based on, Mary's and her team have done some great modeling. Once we know what the actual decision is going to be, we're going to have to remodel all of that based on those decisions, and then that's going to have to drive decisions that the departments will have to make from the capital expenditure plan side. So it really is a bit in flux, as Mary has referenced, but we are going to have to acknowledge all of that. As I say, if the announcements come with replacement funding, we've always said, we're not attached to development charges. We're attached to somebody paying for the capital costs of growth beyond the existing taxpayers. Whoever pays that, I'm entirely impartial to. So Mary and her team, the work has just begun, because as soon as we start to hear what the real announcements will be, we'll have to remodel all of that, and then that'll have to then flip to the departments in trying to decide what does that actually mean in the next, especially in the next 3-year window, where a lot was supposed to be launched. Because then it's a chicken and egg thing, as Mary referenced. If we don't invest in the next 3 years, then your DC and new home openings, they'll all be, that growth gets delayed as well, and then we're back into the circle of, housing shortages and inflationary impacts on prices of housing because of the shortage. It's a challenge. It's a challenge.
Yeah, and I appreciate the challenge. That's part of it, and that's why I have so many questions around that, because how do we get there? So I assume we're, again, like you say, hoping for the best. We will get the revenue replaced, but planning for the worst, assuming they give us nothing?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. I appreciate that. Okay, I'll save the rest of my questions for the DC report, but thank you.
Questions on the presentation? Being none, thank you very much. Our next presentation, I'll get the first name right, Kevin, because I can figure that one out. Kamau, okay, well, I was pretty close. Allison, you're
I'll
going-
introduce,
great.
yes.
Over to you.
Thank you. So good morning, everyone. For those of you I haven't met, my name is Alison Hector Alexander, Director, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion here at the region. And in a couple of minutes, you'll be presented with a very short overview of the proposed regional diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy. We invited Kevin Kamau, founder and CEO of EDSeed, the management consultant practice we engaged for this project. Many of you will remember him from the council engagement session that we did last November. And this strategy will be the main mechanism through which the region will realize the equity focus commitments that we've made publicly, including those found in the regional strategic plan. So while you've reviewed the strategy and accompanying staff report as part of the agenda package, I thought it was important to have this opportunity to engage, to ask questions, and become more familiar with the goals we've articulated in this strategy. We will need your support and commitment to realize the goals and the commitments that we have made. And so I'd like to welcome Kevin to the podium.
Well, good morning, everyone. Morning, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today. My name is Kevin Kamau, and I'm founder and CEO at EDC. We're a management consulting practice that specializes in strategic culture transformation solutions, and with a focus on measurement impact here.
Kevin, can you just get a little close to the microphone? This is being live streamed, so it's harder for our visitors and our guests to view it on slide. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, we've worked with governments, nonprofits, and municipalities across Canada, and has been privileged to walk alongside Durham in co-creating this strategy. We are guided by a vision of connecting every workplace and community to greater possibilities. And our role here was to simply guide an inclusive, evidence-based process to ensure this strategy reflects the voices, aspirations, and perhaps even lived experiences of the community, staff, leaders, service providers, and council alike. Thank you again for entrusting us with the incredible opportunity in supporting this strategic development initiative and allowing us to be part of your journey. I'd like to dive into the journey of how we all got here. The journey at Durham has been a culmination of multiple assessments, as you all know, contributions and efforts that led up to our engagement. And to arrive at this strategy, we listened to many voices and drew from multiple sources. We engaged with leaders, staff, community members, council, service providers, and partners alike. And we also completed a comprehensive assessment, which included collecting data through the surveys, extensive consultations right across Durham, and benchmarking. And most importantly, we created space for lived experiences to be heard and to simply guide this work. This was certainly not a consultant-driven plan. It was built collaboratively, rooted in evidence, and shaped by the people of Durham. From that process, a shared vision and a set of values emerged. The vision here is clear: a region where everyone belongs, every voice is heard, and every community thrives. Guided by equity, inclusion, and respect, Durham will lead boldly, listen deeply, and act with purpose in building connected, caring, and welcoming communities. This vision is supported by values that align with the region's strategic plan. And these values are accountability, agility, curiosity, empathy, inclusion, and trust. And these values will not only guide this strategy, but simply guide how the region approaches its work in the years ahead. Now, I'd want to talk about the actual goals, the 5 goals that were developed. The strategy itself is structured around these 5 SMART goals. And the first goal is about building a foundation by establishing a centralized and coordinated DEI structure to ensure clarity, alignment, and those shared responsibilities. The second goal is about implementing integrated DEI measurement and an accountability system for sustained impact, and which will simply prioritize accountability in those established structures. With frameworks and metrics guiding us from the first and second goals, the third goal is to embed DEI into service delivery, policy, and systems in a consistent, meaningful way. Fostering inclusive leadership and learning culture are considered capacity building. And this has been strategically designed to follow goals 1 and 2, as learning pathways and leadership development are most effective when informed and tied to measurement data, and are also supported by that foundation and structure. With internal alignment and capacity established, it's much easier to expand impact beyond the organization by enhancing community engagement through partnerships and expanding access to DEI learning. Now, each of these goals, I would want to point out, are supported by specific objectives, ensuring that the strategy is actionable, measurable, and sustainable. Okay, so why does this matter? For people, it creates a safer, more inclusive workplace and community where everyone feels valued and supported. For service, simply means it strengthens the way Durham delivers programs and services, making them more equitable and accessible. For trust, it deepens confidence between the region and those communities that it serves. And for reputation, it positions Durham as a leader in embedding equity principles among municipalities across Canada. This strategy is not only the right thing to do, it is also the smart thing to do. Now, as we close, I would like us to return to the title, A Collective Journey. Now, this strategy belongs to all of us: staff, leadership, council, service providers, partners, residents, the entire community. Council's role here is critical, not only in adopting it, but in championing it forward. By adopting this strategy, Durham affirms its commitment to equity, inclusion, and belonging, not just as values, but as actions shaping the future of the community. On behalf of our entire team at EDC, it's been an honor and pleasure, and I thank you for your time. I'd be happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Kevin. We do have a report. So if you have any questions of the delegate, please feel free. If not, we can deal with them during the report. Questions? Being none, thank you, Kevin. I appreciate you being here today and the good work that you and your firm have done to help us on our journey.
Thank you.
We have a delegation, Mr. Richard Ward, Durham resident, and his topic today is the cost of the municipal phone system. Come down, Richard. Welcome back to our chambers. As per our rules, you have 5 minutes and then questions if there is any. So please proceed.
Thank you. Good morning, members of committee. I did a Freedom of Information request for the money that was spent on the ClearNet phone system, which was sold to TELUS. I attended every single meeting from 91 to about 2012. Council meetings, planning committee meetings. In the middle of the 90s, when this phone system agreement was entered into, I watched the police budget go from 50 million to 100 million, and the only significant difference was this phone system. I believe there was a debenture that lasted either 22 or 25 years. I'm starting to think it was 25 now because of 50 million a year for 25 years. I think this was facilitated by lawyer William Walker, Walkerhead Lawyers, on behalf of Simmons Communication. In But what started my involvement was I had a property at Finch and Rosebank, a mile and a quarter from where I was born. William Walker developed the property next door to me and deleted me from the opportunity. I proposed a 6-story medical building because I had negotiated an arrangement with Ontario Hydro to lease their land. They had numerous concerns. When I proposed no overnight parking on using hydro land, it resolved most of their differences. I convinced Hydro that their tower was not quite where they thought it was, which increased the size of my property. William Walker controlled the council, deprived me of my opportunity. I filed a police report that he also controlled the police. The detective that I worked with, this is back early 90s, was excellent. He was brilliant, strong leadership potential. When he was called off the investigation, he went down and did the rest of his time guarding the nuclear plant. This was a highly intelligent, highly competent officer. In hindsight, his intelligence was probably an asset at the nuclear plant. I then went to the courts. The courts rejected my application because William Walker selects, at the time, selected judges, appointed OMB board members, and so I'm up against the political forces.
Mr. Ward,
Yes.
I'm familiar with some of this history, but you're here to speak about the
phone
the
system.
phone system, so please
Yeah.
get back to that.
Well, someone with the political power, I stayed away from them because of the amount of power, control the police, control the courts, control the politicians. I had a situation where an Inspector Cameron couldn't investigate because of the political power at the end that I'm confronting. I explained to Chief Vern White when he was here for a short time. He told me he'd look into it. A week and a half later, he's Chief of Police of Ottawa. This was probably the best candidate in the country for Chief of Police. He couldn't do anything about it. That's the amount of political power. The conclusion is that William Walker, Simmons Communication, I believe, defrauded Durham taxpayers of $500,000 or $500 million, approximately. They sold this system to York Region. I don't know that anybody else bought into it other than York and Durham, because that coincides with the judicial system that William Walker was a member of the inner circle that controls everything. And I think there's a works committee agenda where they built, we facilitated York Durham sewer plant. York got about 200% of the capacity of the York Durham plant. They built a storage facility off Altona Road. And I believe for York Region buying into this phone system, I think Durham taxpayers probably subsidized some of the infrastructure that facilitated York Region because of their participation.
Richard, you're 5 minutes up, so I'm going to ask you to have your final thought.
Okay, thank you. I've made numerous criminal complaints. The police resolve it by saying it's a civil matter. Most recently, March 6th of this year, Health and Social Services said a criminal matter is a civil matter. And I would like to get to the bottom of how much money was spent on this phone system.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ward.
Thank you.
Any questions of the delegate? Mr. Leahy, Councillor Leahy.
Thank you, Chair Ash. So which phone system are you talking about, just so that I'm
It's
clear?
TELUS now. Clear, Simmons Communication had a Club Link.
No, I understand that, but right today in the
Right
region.
today, I believe it's the TELUS system. Durham paid for all the towers. They were going to sell the towers to TELUS. I did a freedom of information to Mr. Clapp back in the 90s, stopping them from selling the towers in the deal that taxpayers paid for. Mr. Clapp gave me a number in gigadollars, and I asked him, what are gigadollars? And he said it made it easier to understand. Well, it made it easier that I don't believe any member of council understood what was actually going on.
So just again, for my clarity, just because I'm having trouble following, you're talking about the cell phone towers that the region owns?
Maybe
Maybe. Okay.
paid for.
All right.
Region paid for. They may or may not be realizing revenue from them because these are powerful political people
Okay.
that control council, police, and courts. And
Okay.
I'm standing up to them.
So, interesting, folks. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Yamada.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Thank you. And thank you for coming in this morning. So you're coming here today looking for the whole cost of this telephone system dating back from the early to mid-90s?
Mid-90s, yes.
Would we not have that information within budgets, past budgets?
The
that something
response
like
I
that would
got
be
was
able
a
to-
significant amount.
Let me, our commissioner, do you want to speak to where this issue is at, please?
Through you, Mr. Chair. The FOI request has been submitted and it's been handed to the police to reply to.
But if he's looking for, I'm sorry, I know this is questions to the delegate, but I'm just trying to understand here. If we're looking for information on a phone system that we paid for, wouldn't that, the police paid for it, but, okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Being none, thank you, Mr. Ward.
Thank you.
And I guess you'll be hearing now that it's been referred on.
I hear nothing. You
Okay.
just put it off as a civil matter and you don't have to respond to me. This has been going 35 years.
Okay.
It's taken my life because of unacceptable circumstances.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And thank you for your
Thank you.
advocacy
Thank you.
and your passion on this
Oh, I'm
item.
still going.
Okay, folks, we're going to move on to reports. We have 8 reports. 7 of them are in public. 1 is in camera if required. So we'll move to the administration reports. The first one is we can do consent and then pull them if we want? Or do we want to go one by one? Oh, there's no consensus. I will then go by one. First item is Durham Region's 2530 Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Plan. I need a mover. Moved by Chair Henry, seconded by Councillor McDougall. Questions? No questions? Okay. Sorry, I'm done. Councillor Gerard.
He hit the button.
Thought I had this figured out. Thank you, Chair. I just have a question. I'm pretty close to the seniors community, and I just got to get the right graph up here. 1 second. The chart that shows the percentage of seniors in each community throughout the region. I just have a question, and it's on slide 12, quite a ways down. In particular, and I'll just focus in on Uxbridge, but it would apply to each of the communities, shows 4.2. Is that 4.2% of the population of all of Durham region that is 65 plus? I'm not sure who I'm looking at with this question.
It's on page 13, I believe. Sorry, page 12 of the slides as an attachment to the report.
Right on.
And it's
19.
headed by religious background, our community, who do we serve? Religious background, and then population 65 and over.
Thanks, Kevin. Chair.
Okay. Do I just go ahead?
Yes,
Okay,
please.
sorry, through the chair. Yes, it is a percentage of the region as a whole. And this is data that comes from the 2021 census.
Fair enough. Could I ask then that you show the percentage of population, I'm not sure if the other communities are interested or not, but certainly I'm in Uxbridge, of what percentage of the population of Uxbridge is 65 plus?
Okay, and that could be something that we could explore through that, that data set.
Okay, if you could send that to me, that'd be appreciated. That's all I
Yes.
have, Kevin, or Mr. Chair, thank you.
You'd have to remember your calculus classes back in high school,
Yeah,
which
that
is a
didn't
long
go well.
time. But there must be a mechanism to figure out what 4.2 is of your population, but it's too early in the morning for you to do that.
People, is that trigonometry, or I don't even know, that's why I thought I would go back through the stuff. Thank you.
Councillor Yamana.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the report. I must say, this was the first time I ever read a labor acknowledgement. So that was a new part of learning for me, and I hope we see more of that within other reports going forward. When I take a look at the goals and the individual points or objectives, when I look at some of these, for example, 2.1, develop a comprehensive measurement framework to assess and evaluate DEI outcomes internally and externally, what would that look like? Even from best practices that you've seen in other municipalities.
Through the chair, looking at changes in culture, changes in the lens that is being applied when we look at how we actually define equity. Equity and inclusion efforts are not very easy to measure. So we would have to be very intentional in developing very formal frameworks. And so first we need to identify exactly what it is that we're going to measure. And so we could either measure outputs in terms of the number of folks, say, who attend an event, the number of folks who participate in an initiative. But we also want to look at outcome in terms of change. You know, how do historically marginalized communities feel a sense of inclusion? How do folks who live with disabilities feel that they could fully participate? And so those are the metrics that we're looking to build so that we can measure how we develop, how we advance, how we evolve in terms of ensuring that we build communities that are welcoming and the region is a place where people feel valued and seen.
Because I would think amassing this type of qualitative data, because you'd have some quantitative KPIs I would think you'd be able to measure against, but when again, if it's more subjective, how do you start with a baseline measurement that you're able to measure this stuff against?
Well, there's a lot of work that has happened within this, in this area. So whether it be the education opportunities that we've developed, whether it be we did an employee census, so there's some baseline data that we have. If you'll remember, we did the equity audit that has the 86 recommendations that we've been working on. So there is some baseline data. And so we will use that data set to be able to develop these formal metrics moving forward that will be tied to the strategy.
Thank you. When I look at some of the other points too, for example, integrate DEI goals and competencies into employee and leadership performance management systems, I would think this would be like yearly or performance reviews. How do we do that? What is it? Adding some more checklists within the within the performance review and things of that nature?
Yeah, so there are processes that already exist with our human resources colleagues would be integrated and incorporating those areas to ensure that we are identifying and measuring how employees ensure that they understand and they apply the principles of equity and inclusion.
So if I were a bureaucrat working in the region, and I was up for my yearly review. What sort of DEI competencies might I be measured against in my work performance?
So from a leadership sense, how do you respond to concerns related to equity? How do you ensure that you create a culture within your team, within your division, where people feel a sense of inclusion and they feel valued? How do you ensure that education opportunities are available that has core equity principles within that? How do you ensure that the service provision, whether it be your front facing, how do you ensure that the folks who are accessing the service see representation, see themselves reflected, the language that we're using is inclusive? How do we ensure? There are a number of different, in terms of our processes or initiatives or everyday work, how do we ensure that our design is fully inclusive for people who live with disabilities? And so there are ways that from a leadership lens, from an employee lens, that we start to normalize ensuring that an equity lens is used in how we do this work.
Thank you. And again, even looking at section 2.3, for example, when we talk about real-time data visualization tools, what would that look like? Are we creating a new web page with dashboards and so on and so forth, so taxpayers can sort of see what we're measuring against?
Yes, and that is something that we will want to co-create with the folks that we engage during the consultation process. What would they want to see? We don't want to create new dashboards that folks may not necessarily refer to, so we'd want to hear from them. There are some existing dashboards, for example, the equity audit dashboard that we do have internally, so we can have conversations around what that could look like externally. We have the larger strategic plan dashboard that captures a sense of inclusion as well, and some other metrics within that larger plan. So these are conversations that we will have as we go through the process of designing the implementation plan for the strategy.
So then if we've got the strategic plan dashboard, we wouldn't be looking at reinventing the wheel, so to speak.
Not necessarily, but these are conversations we need to have to be sure that we get it right.
And even 2.5, for example, and this is the last individual one I'll go through, Mr. Chair, but enhance internal feedback mechanisms to strengthen inclusion, psychological safety, wellness, and well-being, and organizational learning. Are we looking at creating new programs?
We're not. We're going to strengthen. So there are existing mechanisms. We're ensuring that the principles of equity are included and woven within those existing. And if there is need for new, then that is something that we'll co-create as well.
And finally, how will I see the cost of implementing all 5 goals within this report? Is there going to be a budget that comes forward, or will this be embedded in other program or other departments and programs budgets when the overall budget comes forward?
And so it will be a little bit of everything. There will be some actions that we're able to incorporate with our existing budget. Our hope and our ask is that we come back to council in the new year with the implementation plan. And so if it is a directive of council to provide some budgetary information, we can do that as well.
Will the implementation plan have a budget connected to it? Because I would think if you've got ideas of how to implement these goals, there would be a cost affixed to it.
Well, there is an established DEI budget, and so we would have to explore that first before looking at additional asks.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. There's no further speakers. There's a motion duly moved with recommendations of A and B, so I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That item is carried. Our next report is the 2024 Accessibility Report. It's before you to be received for information. Moved by Councillor Leahy, second by Councillor McDougall. Allison, do you want to speak to it, or? No.
No.
You're
It's pretty straightforward. It just
Okay.
speaks to all our achievements in 2024 as it relates to accessibility within the different departments and divisions.
great. Thank you. Councillor Leahy.
Thank you, through you, Chair, to staff. So appreciate that. And it's been a few years since I sat on the Accessibility Committee, but is everything in the region, and are we now, have we finally been, are we fully compliant with all AODA requirements? Because for every building, everything was supposed to be met that facility guideline with the timelines. I know they've always extended them, but are we finally there? Or do we still have a bunch of capital projects to go?
Through the chair, we're still awaiting more direction from the AODA. We were to be fully compliant as of January 2025. We have not received anything. We are going through different audit processes, so I will say that we are as compliant as the direction that we received from the ministry. But in terms of very specific AODA directive in terms of this new term, we have not received anything.
All right, so we're still, just for my clarity, so we're still looking for direction from the province, and they haven't adjusted a new date for compliance. We kind of don't know what the next step is, what you're saying.
No, but we continue to participate in the different compliance processes. Yes.
Okay, all right, so the journey continues. So
It continues.
I appreciate that, but I couldn't figure that out through the report. That's why I asked. So I appreciate all the efforts. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McDougall.
And sorry, just to follow that up, as the representative on the accessibility committee, the journey continues every single year. And interestingly enough, a long time ago, the concentration on accessibility was in physical spaces. And now, oftentimes we're hearing about, accessibility via the digital spaces and those worlds. So, and in terms of documents that you might access online. So it's a ever evolving, I think, continuum in terms of making sure that those that need it, whether it be individuals with deficits or individuals who are aging, whatever your needs are, but the committee continues to work hard, so I thank them for that. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. There is a motion duly moved and seconded, which reads that the committee recommend to Regional Council to receive for information the 2024 Accessibility Report. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That item is carried. Our next item is the Durham Region Anti-Racism Task Force membership appointments. Again, there is a staff recommendation. If there's a requirement to go in camera to review any of the resumes, we can do that at the end of the meeting. Otherwise, a motion would be in order. Moved by Councillor Gerard, second by Councillor Leahy, that the following individuals be appointed as community members: Joseph Kuna Nimby, Kalia Smith, Samantha Amelda Schroyd, Stephanie Byfield, and the following individuals be appointed as representatives from the industry and public institutions to the Durham Region Anti-Racism Task Force: Arella Kong, Matisa Hamill-Niels, and Tanya Morris. Debate. Being none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That item is carried. Next item is policy on use of council chambers. There is a motion to have a policy be approved. The regional clerk is here for any questions, and there is a motion that would be presented. Request? Oh, Councillor Leahy moves it. Seconder? Councillor McDougall. Debate or questions? Being none, I'm going to call a question on. All those in favor? Opposed? That item is carried. Alec, I think you got off easy, that one. We're moving now to finance. The first item of discussion is the indexing of development charges. And what this report speaks to is the deferral of the indexing from November this year, which was delayed from July, until indexing of July 1st, 2026, and amends the bylaws accordingly. Can I have a motion? Moved by Councillor Leahy, second by Councillor Gerard. Councillor Leahy, you had questions on the report.
I do. Thank you, Chair Ash. So appreciate what we're trying to achieve here. I guess my first question through to staff is, how many applications did we get since we started the deferral? Because part of the discussion in the spring, or before we broke for summer break, was we're going to see what happens, or we're going to see how many applications we get and how much revenue we're actually foregoing. So do we have a sense of how many applications actually happened since the deferral started?
Commissioner?
So through the chair, perhaps I'll see whether Mary has that information available. It's been, as you noted from Whitby's experience, it's been an incredibly slow time period, but for all kinds of different contributory factors. So I don't know, Mary, if you have any details on what's been occurring over the last couple of months.
Thank you. Yes, I do, and Nancy's comments are absolutely very valid. We have 3 that are pending on the residential side and 2 that have been executed on the industrial, but that does speak to the very low rate of activity that we are still seeing.
Yeah. 5 applications in 3 months is exceptionally low. I guess, so my follow-up question to that is, so I appreciate that we're trying to give people an incentive by lowering that, but we're also have a huge revenue deficit. So are we really gonna forego that much money? Like what, if they're not applying anyways, is the lowering of the DCs enough of a benefit?
We might not have got the 5 if there was no deferral.
Maybe. But they
Commissioner?
might have gone through it anyways too.
Commissioner?
So through the chair, we're in difficult times because, as Mary's presentation said, everything is in flux with respect to the legislation. And certainly there have been some municipalities that have publicly just cut their DCs in half, never mind waiving indexing. My recommendation has been, when people have asked me that question, is that if there is going to be new rules coming in, we don't want to be caught in the same scenario we were before, where it only applied to us because we just got our DC approved and then suddenly there was phasing and many others weren't affected by that. Because we know that there's legislation imminent, and we knew this in May and June when the province announced it, I really don't want to take any strong moves until we know what that baseline is going to be, because if they say we're cutting DCs by X% effective of what your DC rate is on a particular date, I don't want us to be caught in a box. On the other side of things, we certainly do know that there is a very significant political momentum that development charges are a problem. So it just, from our advice, it was, we don't want to add insult to injury by adding another inflationary increase in the times when we're expecting imminently some provincial legislation, regulations that are contrary to that. So really our goal here was simply to say, let's give this year a buy. We won't do an increase, and we recommended, a couple of measures that have been, I think, well received with respect to industrial and multi-res, but it's really it's kind of a holding firm report in that sense, because we know things are imminent, we just don't know what that is. And I'd rather not make significant moves until we know what that is. But nor do I want to generate a huge amount of controversy by the region of Durham being out there increasing development charges at a time when, our legislative director at the province directs what we can do, are clearly not supportive of increasing development charges. So it's a balance of holding firm, being respectful for what we're anticipating may come, and trying to minimize our losses all at once.
Yeah, no, and I fully respect that. And if we've only had 5 applications in 90 days, we're not really losing much money anyways. But it's just, it's the dichotomy of all the different things. So we don't know what's coming. We're losing money. We don't have enough money. It's a challenge for all involved. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate the opportunity to ask the question, because the financing piece is going to be a challenge. But hopefully, this will continue to spur some more applications between now and July 1st, and we can ask this question again in the spring. Thank you.
I have 2 points. One, Commissioner spoke about 2 municipalities that cut their development charges in half. They are Vaughan and Mississauga, and with them cutting them in half, there's still more than any municipality in our region with its regional. So it's fine to pound your chest to get above us, but they're not below us. And second of all, the federal government's been musing about a program of getting rid of development charges, and the dollar figure they were using wouldn't get them out of GTA, let alone Ontario, and let alone the rest of Canada. So there's going to have to be an adult conversation about this, and I think this is a prudent way to hopefully stimulate, in a minor sense, development. I know I know Mary and Nancy have been fantastic help for developers in Pickering to, you know, we're breaking ground on 2 towers in Pickering and on October the 6th, which is condo towers, which is kind of unprecedented, and it has a lot to do with flexibility shown by the region. So, before I call the council, the question, Councillor McDougall, you have the floor.
Thank you. Certainly, I can understand during these, times of low construction starts, some linear infrastructure can be put off. My concerns are we have some massive projects that, Duffins Creek or any of those that could take upwards of a decade to get done from the time of commitment. If we stall on those, not only do you not have the chance to not put the pipes in the ground in North Whitby once the hydro's available or whatever, you don't have the units available for anyone to discharge to, whether it be Durham or York. So, we're in a precarious point where, as a council, if we if we move those start dates down, that will affect ultimately units that can be built 15 and 20 years from now. So anyway, I'm not sure if this is part of the considerations in terms of our discussions with the province or.
Great. Thank you. Oh, Elaine.
I was just going to say that it certainly is part of our deliberations with the province. At present, the region has not slowed down any capital, and we have 3 major plant expansions underway as we speak, one of which is Ajax, which we hope to finish within 2 years. So the critical piece that we've communicated through our feedback to various provincial and federal initiatives is if they provide infrastructure funding, it will enable us to keep trades and others busy while the market is in this period of downturn. Those discussions are all ongoing.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion duly moved in second. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That item is carried. The next report is F15, 2025, 39 Athol Street, Oshawa, request for regional financial assistance. There is a report recommending approval of this with a number of criteria. Commissioner, do you want to speak to it?
Through the chair, just briefly, this is one of the ones that we're really needing to go forward when we're in our debate around what was going to happen with our ability to do regional revitalization programs. So we are happy to get this one forward, and there's another one I think that may be coming in short order in order to really, again, any avenue that we can to stimulate particularly certain types of housing is important for us to do. So we're hopeful that this will really help this position along.
Okay, let's get it on the floor. Let's get it on the floor first. Moved by Councillor Leahy, second by Councillor Gerard. There's a lengthy recommendation on page 1 of the report. Councillor Leahy, you have the floor.
Yeah, no, thank you. No, I fully support it. We need more housing types of this style. I guess my question is, of the up to 3.5 million, how much is in that reserve account and how much is left? Or is this coming from somewhere else? I can't remember.
So through the chair, it is coming from that reserve fund. I want to say, and I'm not even sure whether Mary has that in front of her, I want to say that we're at 10 to 12 million in there, and this is 3.5 that would come out of that, and it gets supplemented each year to offset the impact. So.
Yeah, no, okay, just trying to understand that part. And you said there's of at least one more application coming.
There's one more that we know is underway, and there may be discussions of others, but certainly there's another one from Oshawa that isn't quite ready yet, but there's been some discussion on that one.
Perfect. No, I appreciate that. No, fully support it. Thank you.
Further questions or debate? Being none, I'm going to call the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? That item is carried. We have one final report that's in public, and it's the reallocation of an approved debenture. This is really technical, from the Oshawa Whitby Depot to the Whitby Oshawa Depot at the existing Scugog Depot. Commissioner, you want to speak to this, please?
So through the chair, if I may, this is a statutory housekeeping report. Debt issuance has very prescribed requirements, and this report, because we're changing the location, we just need to make sure that we're not offside with our debt syndicate lawyers.
Moved by Chair Henry, seconded by Councillor Leahy. Questions? Councillor Leahy.
So just so that I'm clear on the findings of the report, is that we're moving it from like the Whitby offshore location to Scugog?
So through the chair, there was a CIP report from our Commissioner of Works. I want to say it was last Friday, or it might have been the Friday before, that spoke to the challenges of finding a brand-new greenfield site and assessing the Scugog opportunity. And so that report outlined all the details and the recommendation and how that was being proceeded. And this just needed to be, as I say, as a housekeeping. So that report from Ramesh is available on a CIP, and he could answer any specific questions that you might have on that.
Yeah, no, and again, I'm happy to move stuff to Scugog. I just, again, operationally, I'll reach out to Commissioner Jagannathan, but if all the work is down in by the lake, but all the trucks and everything's going to be up in Scugog, aren't we going to be spending a lot more money on gas to get down here?
So if I may, and this is just...
You're not on.
If I may, and this is just off the top from my scanning of it, it's units that will go there that provide, it's not about necessarily the road truck. You know, there's consolidated units that does a lot of testing, all kinds of things like that, where the geography isn't incredibly critical. It certainly would have been a preference to do this differently, but my understanding is a lot of the things that will move there are in the current Whitby site, and that will then allow that site to have the space it needs for the trucks and that sort of thing. So I think there's, Ramesh should speak better to it, but that's my understanding of what's happening is those specialized units will go, and then that creates capacity at the existing site.
Got it. No, that makes a lot more sense. So I just, again, scanning through the report, looking on the different pieces. So it's, because the other thing is, can we not bulldoze something that's there and rebuild it? But I understand. That's helpful. And hey, anything that can help support more infrastructure in Scugog is welcome. I'm just trying to think of the practical implications.
Thank you,
That's my only question. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McDougall.
Thank you. And I certainly want to support growth and job growth in Scugog. I do have some concerns in terms of the environmental constraints and possibly of constructing such a depot on the Oak Ridges Marine. I don't know if those have been spoken to through this report or through the previous report, if there's anyone who can address.
So if I may, I would suggest that if you review that detailed CIP report and perhaps ask Ramesh any questions. I do know that, of course, they're very sensitive to the conditions of any site, and we comply with all the requirements that exist there. But certainly Ramesh could take direct questions, and then if you wanted to ask formal questions at a future meeting, I'm sure that would be fine.
Just this report is about a technical issue on financing and debenture.
Sure.
The issues that you're interested, Councillor, are very valid, but
Yes.
they're more of a works question.
And so from a financing perspective, yes, it certainly would make sense to support that. Thank you.
Thank you. If no further debate, no questions, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That item is carried. There's no advisory committees. There is one confidential matter. It would be appropriate to make a recommendation, to approve the recommendation in camera approve the recommendation as submitted, or we can go in camera. It's moved by Chair Henry. And do we have a seconder for it? Councillor McDougall. We can't really have debate about it. The recommendation was given to you in separate cover, and it's in regards to the status of collective bargaining for one of our union groups. So with that, if there's no discussion or questions or debate, were you voting? I have a question. Oh, okay. Just a base reminder, we might have to go on camera based on your question.
Well, Mr. Chair, I do have questions, I guess, pertaining to the increases.
Okay, we'll have to go on camera then.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I get a motion to go on camera? Moved by Councillor Yamada, second by Councillor Leahy. Please be advised that the committee will now meet in closed session in accordance with the section 239(2) of the Municipal Act to consider labor relations or employment negotiations. With respect to a confidential report regarding labor relations negotiations with respect to CUPE Local 132, and I will verbally report out in general sense of all items considered in the closed session once we rise from closed session and move back into open session. All those in favor? Just 5 minutes. Yeah, we're only, 5-minute recess? Okay. Well, I need a motion to go in camera first. All those in favor? Yes, we have 5-minute break, and then we'll come back. I don't imagine we'll be very long in camera, but thank you for members of council that don't have to stick around, or members of staff that don't have to stick around. Thank you for your support today and your attendance. Not that you had a choice, but. Okay, thank you. Going to call the meeting back to order. This is our Finance Committee meeting of September the 9th. In the continuing interest of transparency and open government, I'm reporting in public session any outcomes from today's closed session meeting. As a result of closed session meeting today, I wish to report there was discussions on the collective agreement discussions on QP 132. There was no motions passed and no direction given. We do have a motion that speaks to approval of the recommendations in the confidential report on Local 132. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Chair Henry, seconded by Councillor Gerard. Debate. Being none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That item is carried. There's no, is there any other business? Being none, the date of the next meeting is October 14th. Councillor Yamada and Councillor Leahy move adjournment of our meeting. All those in favor? Opposed? That item is carried. Thank you very much.